Here we are, example 2 for lesson 4-8, writing linear equations. Write the equation of a line that has an x-intercept of -4 and goes through the point 5, -6. So even though we're not given a graph here, those steps that we talked about from above are still going to apply and we're still going to follow them. So our first thing is to somehow find the slope. Okay, well, remember, even if I don't have grid paper or graph paper provided for you in the problem, you're always welcome to use it. So, we could always jump to a grid and, plot an x-intercept of -4 and the point 5, -6 and figure it out that way. But what we need to realize is that this x-intercept of -4 is actually a hidden point. Let's go orange. This x-intercept of -4 is a hidden point. And we can figure that out. If you're not sure, we can figure that out by looking at this graph. An x-intercept of -4 would be on the x-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 to the left. So that would give me the point -4, 0. And that makes sense because based on our notes about finding slopes and intercepts, we know that in an x-intercept, the y value was always going to be equal to 0 because it has to be in order for it to be on the x-axis. So this hidden point is really -4, 0, and I'm going to use that to find the slope. And like I said, you're always welcome to plot that other point and count the rise and the run, but I'm going to do change in y over change in x here to find the slope. So just a few things I want to start off with. My y equals mx plus b, writing that equation, reminding myself that I need the m value and the b value there. And so I'm going to start off by finding the slope. I know slope is that y minus y over x minus x because it's the opposite of coordinate points, right? Coordinate points are x, y. And that's really how I remembered this throughout my, school days, was that points were always easy for me to remember because they were alphabetical, like x comes before y. And then I just remembered that slope is the opposite of points. Like if points are x, y, then slope is y, x. So maybe that'll help you, maybe it won't. And again, I just like to do that because I mess things up way too often. All right, so we have a y value of -6 minus 0. Now, since I took from the 5 -6 point first, I have to use the 5 first in the bottom. Minus negative, notice how I add those double negatives there, minus from the formula, negative from the -4 in the point. -6 minus 0 is just simply -6. And 5 minus -4 turns into a 9, which can be simplified to -2/3 because you are dividing both of those by 3. All right, so I've got a slope of -2/3 to work with. So now you might be thinking, perfect, I've got my slope, I've got my intercept, so I'm just going to plug those in. Except notice the fact that this is an x-intercept, which is not a y-intercept, which means that is not my b value. I still need to solve for that b value. So this is where we use a point, and we're going to plug the x, the y, and the m back into that equation. So I'm going to use the point. You could use either point. Again, it doesn't really matter. I always like to pick the points with the easier numbers because why not make your life a little bit easier? And clearly working with 0 is always easier. So I'm going to go with the orange point. All right, so I have a slope of -2/3. That's going in for m. I have a y value of 0 and an x value of -4. And then I'm looking for that plus b. B is going to always be there because you're solving for b. You're looking to find what b is. And again, this is where we jump to our handy dandy calculator because boom math in our heads. My stomach is grumbling. I haven't had breakfast yet. Okay, so fractions in the calculator, we've got -2 divide 3 in parentheses times -4 is going to be a positive. Again, repeating decimal, no bueno. Math frac that baby. Answer, frac 8/3. So 0 is equal to 8/3. And again, guys, this is where you've got to be careful. That 8/3 is being added to b. That's a positive 8/3. So I need to do the inverse of that and subtract 8/3 to both sides, giving me a final b value of -8/3. Pachoom. Now, last but not least, and again, don't forget to do this. This is what puts the icing on the cake, or the cherry on the sundae, if you will. Rewrite that equation with the m and the b value plugged in. So we know our b value is -8/3. Let's get our final answer. Y equals -2/3 x minus 8/3. And again, make sure x and y stay as x and y.